Good evening and welcome to the program. Right now across the country, 1 million students, their parents and teachers are sweating on the NAPLAN results, the National Numeracy and Literacy Tests. NAPLAN began in 2008 to compare all students across the country to better help those who are falling behind. We adopted the idea from New York, where teachers are promoted or sacked on the back of the results. But we haven't done that here, and instead, all the pressure falls on the students to perform. Teachers here claim NAPLAN retards growth and restricts creativity. As Ray Martin discovered, a NAPLAN revolt is underway, with one principal even likening the tests to child abuse.
Do not open your test book until I tell you to.
In just 6 years, NAPLAN, the golden child of education, has become a school orphan. It's a test that every Australian kid is familiar with, but nobody loves.
I loathe NAPLAN. I do everything in my power to avoid being a NAPLAN teacher.
I was crying at home because I was so stressed because I personally put a lot of pressure on myself.
Please check that this is your test book and that your name and date of birth are correct.
In May this year, from Perth to Parramatta, Darwin to Devonport, classrooms and school halls were heads down, pencils up, with students in years 3, 5, 7 and 9 all doing the NAPLAN test, all answering the exact same questions.
It seemed like a good idea at the time to test every child in Australia in English and maths, see how they stack up against each other, how the teachers do, how the schools do, and help those who need it. Well, as always, the devil was in the detail.
It's probably one of the most effective ways we found of retarding children's growth.
Retarding?
Yes, retarding growth, yes. We already have our 150 for years.
Veteran headmaster Paul Thompson is a loud and proud NAPLAN opponent. He reckons that its rigid testing damages kids, ruins good teachers, and fails to recognise creativity.
If you're going to learn, you must make mistakes, and you learn from mistakes. NAPLAN punishes children for making mistakes.
Kimberley College, a private school on the rural outskirts of Brisbane, has over 600 students, and many of them are bound for university.
They're in about the top 10 or 15%. And if we can take all comers, like state schools do, then I think that's a badge that we can wear with honour.
Here, NAPLAN is certainly not compulsory. It's not even encouraged.
If we wanted a better education system, the last thing you'd do would be to implement NAPLAN. And I think once we sidestep the constant propaganda related to NAPLAN, parents can see very, very quickly that the whole thing is vacuous in terms of their child's needs.
But the architect of NAPLAN argues that it not only works for the kids, it's critical to their success. And to understand why, you've got to come to the place it all began, New York City. This is where a broken school system, America's biggest, became Australia's role model.
There are 1,700 schools in this city, and the city government thought that the education system had failed the kids. It failed them by not preparing them for the brave new world of technology and rapid change. And they believe the answer was to get tough on the schools and especially on the teachers, those who didn't measure up. Now that's NAPLAN.
Certainly the most important factor in any school's performance is teachers, no question.
If you don't perform, you're gone.
That's the message we wanted to give, yes.
67-year-old lawyer Joel Klein, the tough-talking former boss of New York City schools, became Australia's education guru.
Getting enormously exciting, positive results.
This godfather of NAPLAN devised the scheme targeting teachers to lift the performance of kids.
If you don't have some method of accountability, how do you know if they're not performing well? We want to raise the bar, create more schools that were performing at a high level, give families and kids many more choices, and hold people accountable.
But if the pressure in New York is on the teachers to perform, in Australia it seems to be on the school kids.
Okay. I was stressed, yeah.
You were?
Yeah.
Why?
Because from like the start of school, all we learned was that test. It was like the be-all and end-all.
I know there are so many other students who just crumble under the pressure.
I just felt so stressed that I had to do this no matter what, and that I'd do horrible and nothing would work out.
If it causes that amount of stress, why on earth would you ever do it? I wouldn't call that harmless, I'd call it child abuse, and I think this country's got too much tolerance of child abuse.
What about the criticism that NAPLAN is causing stress and anxiety and even depression?
While I wish life could be stress-free, life is not stress-free. And the reason to have a standardized test is to be able to compare apples to apples.
But if parents and teachers and kids complain about anxiety and depression, that's okay, that's life.
Well, I'd like to be able to eliminate anxiety and depression, but I think about the anxiety and depression people are going to have if they're unemployable.
I guess the main criticism of NAPLAN is that the kids sit for the exam 6 months ago. It's only now that they get the results. So that any problems that were identified should have been fixed by now. And when you're in year 3 or year 5, 6 months is a long time. Lots of things can change.
That's a legitimate concern, and I think that's a problem. I think you should do the tests and get the results back quickly.
Meanwhile, back at Paul Thompson's Kimberley College,
this numeracy non-calculated test is...
They are allowed to do the much maligned NAPLAN test.
Please put your pencils down and close your...
Though they're not exactly queuing up. This year, only 13 students sat the exam.
Why did you do it? If you didn't want to do it, you didn't have to. Why did you do it?
Parents made me do it.
Okay. Hands up those who did it because their mums or dads told them to.
My parents made me do it because they believe that you can't just run from everything that you don't want to do in life. So they made me sit this.
And tests are part of life?
Yeah.
Is that all right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
So how was it?
It was just scary, like the thinking of like if you're going to do bad or if you're going to get good marks.
It has got the clutches of the education system. It is what the education system is now resting upon, is this test data, and trying to make this test data look better.
In all of this, it's hard to find an Australian teacher who'll give NAPLAN the time of day. Lucy Honan has taught in the Victorian public school system for 4 years now. She loves teaching, but she loathes NAPLAN.
I love really engaging kids. I love seeing them.
She reckons it's hijacking the curriculum because schools are teaching only to get the best NAPLAN result.
It's narrowing the curriculum and dumbing it down. I mean, what's valued now in schools is what can be quantified in the NAPLAN tests. And what can be quantified is not, you know, all of the quite interesting and, you know, magical parts of learning, the motivation, the enthusiasm, curiosity, creative thinking, all of those things can't be quantified.
You should add other subjects then. If they want to do science and they want to do history and they want to do music and art, I'm all for that.
But for all the antagonism here, the fact is Australia's NAPLAN is only half as tough as the scheme that Joel Klein devised. In New York, on the basis of their test results, he sacked underperforming teachers while giving hefty bonuses to reward others. And Klein even closed over 100 schools that didn't measure up. But Australia has not introduced this carrot and stick approach to education reform.
There is a sense that teachers are not doing the best, that somehow they're avoiding teaching for some reason, and that teachers need to be shown up and that schools need to be shown up and exposed and shamed. I think it is really undermining our education system.
Teacher evaluation is always going to be controversial. And, you know, let's be candid. If you have a way to evaluate teachers based on tests, they're often not going to like that. But not everybody should be a teacher.
Do you think the basis of the criticism was the teachers' union, the teachers saying, look, we don't want to be under the microscope?
That's certainly part of it, and it's totally understandable. Nobody likes to be under the microscope.
And it's not just the educational value of NAPLAN that's under attack. There's also the cost. Now, it's hard to find out exactly how much, but the test probably cost in excess of $50 million. And critics say that that's a lot of money to spend on a dodgy system that ranks schools on the My Schools website.
Parents look up a My Schools website and believe that this school may be better than that school simply because the NAPLAN results are higher. I think they're actually underestimating what they should be looking for in a good school.
Well, thank you.
How's the day going?
Good.
Flo Carney runs Somerville House in Brisbane. Here, all the girls sit the NAPLAN test, and the school always tops the national ratings. Although Miss Carney insists that the NAPLAN results tell her nothing new about her students.
So why do you like it?
NAPLAN?
Yes.
Why do I like NAPLAN? Did I say I like NAPLAN? It certainly doesn't help us to do anything more than we're already doing.
So you're asked by the government to play the game, that's what you do.
We do.
But that's really all it's about.
It is for us.
But for the teacher, the NAPLAN results are another slap around the head.
It feels like that. Honestly, it does. That's the damage that the NAPLAN results on my school's website is doing.
There's plenty of room to say who do we blame. The question is, can we find solutions? Because these kids are going to need it. A kid who comes out of high school, who doesn't graduate, what's their future going to be? And what's the system's response? Well, that's the kid's problem.
Joel Klein left the New York school system some years ago. He now runs Rupert Murdoch's IT education empire. It's a futuristic, billion-dollar business, but Klein still believes in the basics.
If the kid's getting a crummy education and the kid is not prepared for what life is going to demand, I think you're just fooling these kids. And I'm just surprised that people don't think that holding the schools accountable, meaning that they've got to do a better job, is not a core policy, whether it's in Australia, US, or anyplace else.